Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Paradigm Shifters. And Paradigm Shifters Radio features a number of people that are making a difference on the planet at this time, in this turbulent time on this planet. And today we have a visitor who's got several designations and several descriptions that make him very interesting and very special. One is he is the author of four different books actually. He's also an ordained minister, has had a long history in things like radio and consciousness and personal evolution. Oh my goodness, and is now married to Terry, Lady Ashtar, so is now traveling the world at times with an enlightened being, and he have sure a lot to say about that. So welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It's a delight to be with you.
Oh, I'm so glad to talk to you. And I love the names of your books, which are, there's four of them, so I'll just read the titles here. Think, Believe, Receive. I think we know that's about manifestation. It's All
Right.
About Me, Bear and Butterfly, and the Lady Ashtar story. So I wanted to jump into It's All About Me. It's one of my
Yes,
favorite lines. It's one of my favorite
isn't that,
lines.
let me tell you a little secret about that. I was at a conference, ministerial conference in a retreat a few years ago. And as I was doing my meditation, the words came to me, think, believe, it's all about me. And I responded, what does that mean? And there was no answer. But I had to deal with an individual who was a speaker. I had seen them briefly the previous year at the same conference, and I didn't really resonate with them. And that was in a breakout session, only a half hour, 45 minutes. And now here they were going to be a keynote speaker for this retreat where I was so deeply in the place of love. I was beaming, almost levitating. It was so wonderful. And yet here I was faced with this challenge of somebody that I wasn't interested in seeing. So I was left with the question, what do I do about it? Spirit again came through and said, get yourself a pad of paper and a pencil and follow my lead. So I sat down at this conference. I bravely sat down, and I was given the crux of what It's All About Me was about. And what I did was recorded each of the things I was feeling, recognizing this had nothing to do with the speaker. It all had to do with me. How was I reacting? What was my resistance point? Where was I turning away? Was there any place that I actually joined the speaker in their presentation? And I put those notes away afterwards and came back to them a couple of days ago and learned the most remarkable things about myself. And that was the very, very genesis of the book, It's All About Me. It's All About Me. And the subtitle of that is The Involved Observer.
Oh,
Because
that's a good line, the involved observer.
we have no choice but to be involved.
Hmm.
Obviously, by our very existence, we're involved. But when we can take that little step, doesn't have to be a big one, the little step aside and look at our own reactions, look at our own motivations, look at our desires and how they all meet up, then we have this beautiful place of living life consciously.
Aha.
And I
That's,
know you're dedicated to getting people to think about living life consciously.
and I have a cheeky way of saying some of that as well. People will say things like, there's fashionable ways of talking, which is, well, it's not all about you, And I say, well, actually, it is.
It is, yes.
And then just about always they burst out laughing, even if there'd been animosity in the beginning.
Yeah,
But it's true.
yeah,
Nobody else. You and I spoke before we got onto the radio here about examining our own beliefs and stuff. It is all about me to see what it is I'm putting forward and what I'm blocking and what I believe and all of that, isn't
yes,
it?
yeah.
Is that what you did?
Where
How
did,
long is that book? I haven't seen it. Hmm?
oh, I've got a copy of it right here. The whole thing is 111 pages.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this is not a doorstop book. This is something you can read at one sitting, or you can pick up and put down.
Sounds like it's a
It's
door open book.
it's a door. Thank you so much for that. I'm gonna use that one, Veronica.
Please do,
I'll
yes.
try to give you credit.
Just laugh a little. That's good.
Yeah. So in the It's All About Me, I set the stage with some scientific experiments that were done, like Schrodinger's cat,
Oh,
which is
right.
that old mind experiment. There's a cat, and please, if you happen to love cats, hold on, we're all right here. A cat in a box with a vial of poison, and when you open the box, the cat will either have opened the poison, the poison will have opened and thereby killed the cat, or the cat will be alive. We won't know till we open the box. It is both when that box is closed, which is when our minds are in the creative state, the possibility of success or failure are equal. We won't know until we move forward what it is.
I like that.
It's and that goes through mythology, the later lady or the tiger, or which door do you open? It's a theme that has been repeated throughout human history because it is one of the basic tenets of life. It exists only in a conceptual state until we step in and make it happen individually. The very same box Veronica opens is not the same box I open.
Exactly. So you get back into the subjective. So if we go to your first book, Think, Believe, and Receive, there must be some terrific overlaps there. Can you talk about that book as well?
It is. There is a beautiful overlap because Think, Believe, Receive is I think of it as a spiritual primer.
Okay.
It takes many of the tenets that make up metaphysical belief, new thoughts, science of mind, unity, all these wonderful, wonderful teachings, removes from them the buzzwords that can be a divider.
Okay.
It just lays out the idea of how it is to create something. We start with thinking. Well, we're thinking all of the time. It's impossible not to think. We think, gosh, I wish I'd cleaned my shoes. And then we have a belief. Well, my shoes reflect myself. I go out in public, people look at my shoes, and they judge me based upon the how my shoes look or what shoes I'm wearing. And what I receive is confirmation of that. Because now the only thing I'm attuned to is not whether people respond to the next new blazer I'm wearing, but how they're responding to my shoes. So our belief is then manifested in receiving. There's lots of permutations of that, but the whole manifestation process, the whole way we bring our lives into focus, all follow these steps. What are our beliefs? How are we thinking? What our beliefs are? And are we ready to receive? Because many times we have these beautiful dreams and visions of something. I tell a story in the book about how I was working at a radio station in Los Angeles years ago, and I was making just barely above survival wages. And so, of course, my thought was, I want money. Well, my belief was a little scattered about that, about what that meant and how I might get it. But one day I was standing at a fast food place, and I was tapped on the shoulder by a woman. I turned around, and she was holding out a $10 bill to me. And here is the perfect demonstration, the perfect manifestation. But I was looking to have more money in my life. And what did I do? I said, I can't take that. Why couldn't I take it? Because I was not set up to receive the bounty that the universe is all doing.
But why was she offering it to you? Under what auspices?
She did not explain. She may have been doing a sociological experiment.
Uh-huh.
She may have just been a generous person who wanted to share. paying it forward. Her motivations were not even part of my decision that I couldn't take that.
Mm-hmm.
I did not receive what was being given me. And that's where our whole thought, belief, receiving process breaks down. Many times we're at the bus station when our ship comes in.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting because I can relate to things in my life where I've pushed away something because I usually
Mm-hmm.
rationalize, well, that person it deserves to keep it, or they don't, it's like I don't want to
Yeah.
be a taker or all of those things. And yet sometimes
Mm-hmm.
receiving is the gift to the person who's sending it to you, right? Or giving it to you.
It's a two-way gift, receiving and giving.
But it is all
Uh,
about me, how I handle it.
it is all about me.
I
Absolutely.
know.
Where
So
are you? Where is your mind? Where is your heart?
where is your
Uh,
heart?
and
Where's your
and
fear?
well, boy, and you're so accurate in what you're saying there, Veronica, because it all does come back down to fear.
It does, doesn't
That
it?
fear is such a powerful motivator. It can lead us forward or it can hold us back. Same thing. Again, it's all about me. How am I going to deal with my fear? Will it make me do fabulous things, or will it keep me from doing anything? Fear unto itself is no thing until we apply it.
That's right, isn't it? Do you give exercises in these books at all? Do you give solutions?
In the book Think, Believe, Receive, and at the end of each chapter, I have a review of the subchapters within it,
Okay.
and you get to ask yourself, what is my thought? What am I thinking at this time? And each of the chapters has an affirmation at the end of it. In fact, in Think, Believe, Receive, I even talk about the importance of affirmations and where affirmations are of no benefit to us because we're just mouthing words.
Well, that's true.
Mm-hmm. I've seen so many demonstrations. Oh, I've tried affirmations. They don't work. Well, let's go back and look at your motivation here. Are you really invested in this? What is your belief behind the affirmation?
And you could have a
Oh,
subconscious belief that blocks the very thing that you think you're being conscious about, too, right?
oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
100%. You were asking about exercises. In the book, It's All About Me. Once I get past the demonstration of how hard science has shown that metaphysical and spiritual beliefs have a basis that can be measured,
Hmm.
which I put in there for the people who want, show me facts, show me exercises, show me quantified results. I put it in there specifically for that reason. And also, in the latter part of the book, we look at different scenarios, driving to work. I mean, even beginning with, how is your day going to go? You wake up, the alarm clock doesn't go off on time, or you don't hear it, or you forgot to set it, and you're 20 minutes late. Now, is this going to paint your entire day in terrible colors?
Well, it's all
Or
about me.
it's all about me. How am I going to paint the day? Can I look at it and say, oh, I did it again? Okay, I'll just make a phone call. I'll let them know I'm running late, and I'll just go about my day. Or do I then go into anger, and that in turn produces more anger, which produces more reasons to be angry, and so on and so forth.
That's
So yes,
actually
there
true,
are
yeah. Hmm.
exercises in both of them. Yeah.
I like that. I was just thinking how that's how we contrive our identities a lot of times, isn't it? Our
It
personalities.
is.
Hmm.
It is. And again, chicken or egg? Which is it our belief that fashions how we function, or is it how we function that fashions our belief? And probably the answer to that rhetorical question lies somewhere in between.
Well, I think it was kind of the infinite sign, their infinity sign, don't you? So it goes
Oh,
round and
absolutely.
round. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It goes around and around and around. The beliefs create the reality. The reality is created by the belief. And then we all sit down and sing Kumbaya and make s'mores by the fire.
I'm up for that. I'm up for that. No, I love that discussion. So you're a minister and you're also a you're a metaphysical explorer, are you not? Are you not someone who
Oh, I
has
think that's a great definition of it. Absolutely. A metaphysical explorer. I used to use the word uh, sojourner.
Oh, okay. That's a good
Uh,
word. That's a great word.
well, it is. And then I got thinking about the implications of the word sojourner, which suggests I'm never really going to find anything. I just keep looking. Well, in the truth, I do keep looking,
Of course.
but to recognize that I am finding things and not to keep looking to the next horizon for my answers today, but to embody what I have learned today and know there's even more beyond.
Well, you know, when I use the word explorer, which I love, I think I must be an explorer, right? I think of exploring dimensionally or
Mm-hmm.
horizontally, or, so there's an infinite way of being that it can never stop. I mean, we've always got some new levels, right? So I don't think of that as just sojourner. I think of it as just like a real kind of an equation with life that I have the possibility of when I feel stuck. Mm.
It's all, see, that's getting on a real important thing. Once we reach the point, and I think we all sooner or later find ourselves in what we would call stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But that is simply a resting point that gives us time to embody the lessons that we have been accumulating and take a breath, find out who we are. And as long as we don't make stopped, we're just fine. If we admit to ourselves, you know what, I feel kind of stuck, well, that frees us up emotionally and spiritually to get to the next level without carrying forward that beautiful gift to the Western culture called guilt.
Were you trained in
I,
guilt like some of us?
uh, I, I'm sure guilt was a big portion of my life, and I'm sure I also employed guilt
Hmm.
in a good portion of my life.
Almost like it's a
For
duty at times, yes?
it almost, I'm doing this for your good.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm making you feel bad so you will be a better person. And that's a lie.
Hmm.
I'm making you feel bad to make me feel better. That's where it always comes back to when we're using guilt.
Right.
But it's simply another expression of the human experience. And if we cannot stand in the idea of if we understand in the idea that nothing is either good nor bad unto itself, then we also have to recognize that guilt unto itself is not bad.
It
It
is,
is.
well, yeah, I suppose not. Hmm. None of it's
Mhm.
bad. None of it's bad because I think what we're talking about is to recognize what what we're using and when we're using it is what's liberating ultimately, isn't it?
And this is exactly where we want to be focused. And I know that's what you dedicate your work on this show to doing,
Hmm.
is helping people to see the opportunity that lies in examining their own beliefs. There, that is the place of power.
It is,
Even
isn't it?
if we end up back at the same place, it's okay as long as we have taken some time and say, why am I here?
Hmm.
Why does this bother me? Why does this thrill me? We very rarely ask that question, but
But it's really
but
interesting
I,
you say we could come back to the same place. I'm going, I don't know, Brian. I think I'm going to have to argue with you because I think if you do come back physically to the same place, you're not the same inside.
well, that's a beautiful recognition. that is the evolution. Once we have taken the time to examine our belief,
That's a good
my
point.
belief is, yes, I totally believe that metaphysics are the way for me to expand. And then I'm challenged to say, well, explain why you think that. And I look at it and I give specific examples. I can still come back to the bigger umbrella question of why I think metaphysics are the key to finding more expansion. I will definitely have a deeper belief or understanding. But the general question of why do I feel that way about metaphysics still remains, because I believe it to be how I am expanding and ascending and achieving what enlightenment there is for me to achieve on this path. So yes, I come back different, but from the same basic words.
You land on the same lily pad.
I like it. Yeah.
So, so let's see, where you started off, you were a California kind of guy, right? And
Yeah, I was born on the East Coast, but California has been the dominant point of relationship. I moved to California when I was 5.
oh well, yeah. So you are a California kind of guy, right?
I am a Californian.
Because I look at your history here and I think, well, he's on air. He's done amazing work with some very famous rock stars. Oh my goodness. That must have been thrilling. Working
Yes,
at
it was.
Knott's Berry Farm, working at Disneyland. You're a California kind of guy. I'm telling you what.
I am. Yeah. That there's no question. My physical upbringing has been Californian. There's a great deal of my value system that was established by going to Illinois to my aunt and uncle's farm.
Oh, wonderful.
Probably 6 or 7 times in my formative years, when I learned that what you worked for, you got.
Mm-hmm.
And you were expected to carry your own weight. If at 5 years old, there were things I could do. I could feed the chickens, and by golly, I contributed. I fed the chickens. When I got to be 8 years old, I got big enough to work with the hogs. When I was 12, I could be expected to work the hay rack when we were baling hay. And you were always expected to participate and contribute.
Did you milk cows as well?
Yes, I had that experience, not for many times there. They ended up not having the milking cows after a while.
But the reason I asked that is because this young boy, who's basically a city kid, right, is having these actual cause and effects of bringing food into the world. You know what I mean? Is like the kids these days don't know where a potato comes from.
Well, exactly.
You know.
Yeah, and that's the absolute truth. Even going out to the tree to pick, as I got to do with some beautiful pears in our yard this morning. Don't you go to the store to get pears? Yeah, but really, they're on a tree that you can take care of.
I love that.
That emotionally and I morally shaped a good deal of my life, far greater than the actual physical time I spent there.
Well, you must be sort of cognitively aware of like seasons and crops, and even though you weren't there that much, you had that cause and effect again, even in the rhythms of life.
Yeah.
Lucky you, eh? That's great. So then you shot from there into all kinds of things like the military and radio. Talk a bit about that and what really gave you the incentive to get into radio. And it was from the military, wasn't it?
Well, the radio came to be because I was in Australia as a 17-year-old, and this friend of mine and I decided we were going to drive all the way around Australia. Well, we started in South Australia and made it about 500 miles and ran out of money. The car broke down. So we were standing
Welcome
there.
to youth, right?
Yeah, really? There is no, what's my belief? I can do this. So we started off. But there I was one Sunday. We were living literally hand to mouth, digging ditches. Honestly, that's how we made money. And one Sunday afternoon, our rare day off, we were standing there at Victoria in Melbourne, looking out at the harbor, and there were some ocean powerboat races going on. And off to one side, there was a mobile unit for the radio station 2SM, which is how they designated their FM stations in Australia at the time. And inside there was a guy reading a newspaper with his feet up on the dashboard. And every 15 minutes he put down the newspaper or whatever he was reading, and he'd make a report to the station. And I watched him do this a couple of times, and I said, that's the job I want. So from there, I started just direct line to radio. I went out and interviewed radio stations around town. Said, how do I get into the business?
And this is in Australia.
In Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so kind and supportive. I came back to the U.S. and went to college for broadcasting. And Uncle Sam knocked on my door. That would be part of my age because it was the last year of the draft. And they said...
But wait a minute, you were in college, right?
I was in college,
mm-hmm.
but the college deferment had gone away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they said, we'd kind of like to see you. We got this little thing going on. And I said to myself, oh, no, we're going to take our lives into our own control here. And I then went out and found that the Army would guarantee me broadcasting. And so that's how I actually ended up being trained in broadcasting.
Wow.
Went over to Thailand during the war and broadcast radio and television over there, and came back.
Sort of like Good Morning
California.
Vietnam?
Oh, yes. Yep,
okay.
Absolutely. I had the same material that Adrian Cronauer had. Same source, KFRTS. And it gave me a great broad grounding in what it was to be a broadcaster. So when I got back to the United States up at Fort Ord and looked around for a radio station to work part-time, that's how I got involved with KWAV up there and began my commercial broadcasting. But it all started with looking at a guy who appeared not to be working and saying, that's what I want for a job.
So this is not because deep down in your soul you were trying to self-actualize into a radio, right?
I have never gone that deep with it, Veronica.
Oh, I have a little sidebar here. Sidebar, doot doot. I was finishing a degree. It was a big gap. I only needed a couple of courses, so I went to Goddard College and did one of those mentoring kind of times, and I was doing radio internships, and I became a channel as well. So I always say I studied radio, and I became a radio.
I love that.
Isn't that fun?
Now that statement now makes sense. Yeah. I got that.
Yeah. So
that was my radio story.
And how did you get into stage manager for the Sea Gaze concert series?
That was service. And as the years go by, I recognize how important service is to our own spiritual well-being. And by the way, it helps the community too. Mm-hmm. This was
you got yourself to nudge or rub up against the shoulders of people like Johnny Cash and Creedence Clearwater revival.
Yeah, that's the effect. Mm-hmm. The cause was being involved in the JCs, whose commitment was to the community. Mm-hmm. And the opportunity came along to serve the community by putting on this concert series. So I stepped up. Same way I got into Soapbox Derby.
Oh, really?
Serving the community. The Downtown Merchants Association wanted an event that was child-oriented, family-friendly. And somebody came to a JC meeting one night and said, hey, anybody want to head this up? I'll give it a try. And I've been with them for 24 years now.
Oh, it's wonderful. Is it satisfying?
It's very satisfying to see the communication that can develop between children and mentors, be they parents or people from community organizations, the police department, whatever it might be. see that communication develop, to see the self-empowerment, and that's a word I like, empowerment, that comes about from a child actually feeling, perhaps for the first time in their life, that they are in control of their own experience.
Wow. So actually, you're talking about an emergence of a real heart connection with humanity and life and empowerment, which I love. Is that what drove you into the ministry? I mean,
You
drove in
are,
your soapbox?
yeah, yes, I got in the Ramps drop. For me, the journey to ministry was not so much driven as unveiled.
Oh, okay.
When I found out that there were actually people and groups and organizations that were teaching uh, self-actualization, visualization, things that I had gotten somewhere along the line, probably from my parents. Um, and here there were real words for it and
Wow.
real laws
Hmm.
and a way to consciously work with it. I immediately was drawn to it and just kept going. Tell me more. I want to learn more. I want to learn more. And then I found myself up to become a licensed practitioner. And I just kept saying, give me more. I'm feeding on this. This is just filling my soul. And before I knew it, I was standing there taking my oath as a minister.
Oh,
And you know what? The journey hasn't yet ended. I
no.
have the title, but as anybody who has become a minister, they sooner or later recognize that the true teaching only begins once you assume the commitments of being a minister, to minister. That's when the real teaching begins.
Being a minister to minister. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
But also
Well,
the way you
it's
said it, I
feminine.
went, I love the art of being. That's what I
The
thought
art
you
of
were saying.
being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And being true to
it
yourself because it's all about me, right?
it is all about me. And you know, we keep coming back to that. And it basis it is it doesn't matter what your belief system is. It is all about you.
Hmm.
So if it's all about you, take command of that.
It's like the core
It
of your contribution into the world. It's a core to know what
Yes,
you are and what you have, right?
and then you can work more powerfully at bringing the gift that you have, because each of us is unique. Each of us has something or some things that are essential to the evolvement of this planet. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
What a wonderful way to put it. Thanks for that, Brian.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we're running you right through your history because I can really feel the pulse of your evolution going through it, you know?
And
So,
when we look back on it, it all seems like a straight line.
I know. And it's actually a very bubbly line, though, isn't it?
It is. It
Hmm.
is.
So, tell us some, maybe where you got stuck. Let's use the word stuck since we've already mined it for a little bit of truth there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just yeah, just talk about where you got stuck and what made the changes. How do people elevate themselves when they're stuck?
Well, first of all, I don't believe that we can unstuck ourselves by staying in the idea that I'm stuck. That perpetuates itself.
Hmm.
So when I feel stuck and I hear myself saying, I'm stuck, the first thing I seek to do is to reword that. I have been stuck. Up until now, I haven't felt forward progress. But that lets me then go ahead and find and listen and receive the gift that is to follow.
Hmm.
Maybe that stuckness, as I mentioned earlier, was just a time for me, a deep breath, to
Hmm.
embody the wonderful things I've learned. And I wasn't stuck at all. I was simply processing.
Hmm.
Now, once I reach that point where I look around and say, you know what? I haven't created any anything new the past month, then that means to me, you're through it. Because now I'm looking around and saying, it's time to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But if we harp on ourselves that we're stuck, that's exactly what we produce. Stuckness.
Right. That's true, isn't it? Yeah. But you
And
have
I've
had no
made up
big
2 words.
traumas, like no deaths or that sort of thing that can sometimes.
Oh, my biggest challenges over the years have been in relationships.
Oh, okay. Well, you're Libra, right?
Yes.
That's your
Oh, is
job.
that's my job?
Yeah. You're supposed
As
to
we go
refine
through
yourself
each,
in the context of relationship.
as we go through each of our astrological signs for evolution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Spiral through
Yeah.
them. I like to think spiral, don't you?
The spiral metaphor works for me on so many levels.
Me
Because
too.
it talks many times. Yes. Yeah.
So,
But
relationships, yes?
relationships have been my sticking point. And this leads us to the beautiful person that we mentioned coming into this, and that's Terry Simons, Lady Ashtar.
Beautiful Lady
Because,
Ashtar. Hmm.
she's been a guest on your show a
Oh,
number of
yeah,
times. It's
she's
my
one of our
honor.
honored guests. She's one of our
Mm,
favorites, yes.
my, I have been through so many relationships where what I was seeking was somebody to complete me.
Hmm.
When I finally got to my own point of ascension, where I recognized that what I need, what I'm looking for, is not somebody to complete me, but somebody with whom I can enhance my life and enhance their life. That's an entirely different perspective.
Hmm.
Terry does not complete me. I do not complete Terry. But we do enhance each other's lives by supporting each other, by going through the ups and downs, by being the yin when the other's the yang, and vice versa. That's enhancing.
That's
And
wonderful.
it is through, and I mentioned the word ascension because I had a profound experience that took place just 2 years ago, actually,
Hmm.
when I was called to take a long walk on a beach here in the San Diego County area. And as I walked out on the beach that day, I said, okay, we're going to talk to ourselves, and we're not going to accept any nonsense. If what you say about your thought has anything to do with how other people have behaved, it's gone. It doesn't have any place. I accept full responsibility for all of my thoughts, all of my actions. Now, I also accept full responsibility for creating the life I want to live. What will that look like? And over a period of a week, on these long 4 and 5 mile walks, I examined every aspect of my being. And the end result was this beautiful moment of realization, of clarity
Hmm.
that completely released me from my previous life. And that opened the door. Weeks later, less than 2 weeks later, I had the very exciting experience of meeting Terry.
Oh.
And she was, I was living in La Costa, and her page said she lived in a place about 45 minutes away. And I thought, 45 minutes. She'd really have to be special. So we got exchanging messages and evolved to Skype, and we're seeing each other. And it was probably 2 weeks later that she confessed to me that she was not in this place that her profile said, that she was actually in Japan. So 45 minutes didn't seem like such a big deal anymore.
So it was an online situation where you met, was it?
It was. She was on one dating website. I was on another.
Mm.
And Ashtar takes credit for bringing us together.
Of course, of course. For
Yes.
people who don't know, Ashtar is an ascended being, and he comes through Terry Simons, and oh my goodness, he's not afraid to talk about what's going on politically. He's not afraid to really nail the issues of being human at this time, and they do an awful lot of service in Japan. And if we're lucky, we
Yes.
get him here too. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Terry has been, for the past 8 years, over in Japan 3 months, and then here 3 months, and then in Japan 3 months. That work,
Wonderful.
I'm delighted to say, has expanded, and now it's up to about 7 months a year that she's in Japan. She's the
Wow.
headliner at 2 of the big spiritual fairs over there. And people come and listen.
Wow.
And Ashtar, as you said, doesn't pull any punches.
Nope. I love that about him. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He'll say what he has to say,
Mm-hmm.
and if you want to feel hurt about it, well, it's all about you.
Mm-hmm.
That is your choice. Dealing with an ascended master has actually produced 2 more books for me.
Oh, good. Tell us about
Yes,
the books.
We were at an Ashtar session shortly after I met Terry,
Mm-hmm.
kind of new to this thing. As we're going around the circle, Ashtar stopped what he was doing and he looked at me and said, "You're going to write another book." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yes, it's going to be about relationships." And I laughed. What do I know? You do know my history, right, Ashtar? You do know what I've done? And he said, "Yes, we are fully aware of what you've done. And that's why you're going to write it. And don't worry about it. We're going to lead you." And we, in this case, Ashtar being an 11th dimensional ascended master, of course, incorporates everything in the we.
Mm-hmm.
But my personal guide is Bartholomew, who, among other incarnations, was a disciple of Jesus, the teacher Jesus. And Bartholomew was participating in my first 2 books in bringing me the information.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book Bear and Butterfly, Ashtar and I really should have them as co-authors.
Really,
They
really.
just fed me these understandings and this information in such a clear form. And what Bear and Butterfly is based upon is a parable that Ashtar relates when, in particular, a woman says, "You know what? I have this wonderful man in my life, and I'm trying to get him to draw closer, but everything I say seems to drive him away." So he tells this parable. And what it's all about is how bears, or bear energy, thinks and responds, and how butterflies and butterfly energy think and respond. Now, this is not related to physical gender. We all know men who are butterflies,
Mm-hmm.
who have a softness about them, who have a compassion about them. We also know females who would be at home in any NFL locker room.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And this is neither good nor bad. It's not gender specific. But the goal is for those who live in the bear energy world to understand, to recognize, and appreciate butterfly energy. And for butterflies to recognize that they are communicating on a different level. And if the bear energy and the butterfly energy are to communicate, then they're going to have to move closer together. If not to be a bear to become a butterfly, or a butterfly to become a bear, but to recognize there is power in using the other energy and to balance what we're doing.
And to really respect it, eh?
If we can recognize it, then we can learn to respect it.
Yeah, I love that. This is very interesting stuff. Also, when you talked about relationship and saying to Ashtar, yeah, you know what I've been like in relationship, you'd be
Hmm.
perfect to write it in the sense that I would jump to that conclusion of understanding that you've been through so much, you'd be able to pull some of the strands of confusion out for people to receive so that they don't necessarily have to go through as many hurdles as you did.
And thank you for that.
Hmm.
Yes. Fortunately, I'm guided, supported, and loved very directly by this ascended master
Isn't that
who
wonderful?
is present in me all of the time. And saying that, I really do want people to listen to that phrase because I am not different than anybody else. When Veronica channels, she is not different than anybody else. We are just listening because they, the universe, God, spirit, first cause, however you want to look at it, is always present for us
Hmm.
when we turn our attention to it. We may not become channels where we consciously or in trance like Terry does allow another entity for us come through us, but it's always there speaking to us. Our job is to shut up and listen.
And turn the radio on.
There you go. Get that get dial in because it's always there. The
Wow.
answer to our question is always there. The answer to our need is always there.
Isn't that fascinating? Well, you know, Brian, we unfortunately have to end this in just a
Oh,
few minutes, which is too bad
okay.
because you're delightful. And
Well, it's been such great joy to sit here and chat with you. I need to make one more plug.
please. Hmm.
We have something coming up in Sedona in February.
Oh, great.
It's called the Love Ascension and Beyond, and it will be Terry as Terry Simons. It
Uh-huh.
will be Lady Ashtar with Ashtar doing their beautiful work. I will be talking about relationships, manifestation, and self empowerment. We have a guy who is a UFO expert. He's going to come and work
Wonderful.
with us, looking out into those beautiful night skies over Sedona and spotting,
Hmm.
recognizing extraterrestrial life. And to tie it all together, uh, a friend of ours who is a magnificent master of the symphonic gong will be providing us the vibrational meditation to reset our beings as we go through this transitional weekend. And that's in Sedona, 9th, 10th, and 11th of February at
Wonderful.
the Creative Life Center.
That sounds like a wonderful combination. Makes me think of Mr. Rogers because it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And they're
We're
bringing you
expanding the
into
neighborhood.
a. Well, you're vibrating. This neighborhood is wonderful. It's a wonderful
Thanks.
combination, isn't it?
Oh,
And that's
it just
February
gets
the
better every
9th?
day.
Okay. How do
Yeah.
people sign up? How do people connect with you and
Uh-huh.
connect with Lord Ashtar and Lady Ashtar and learn about the Sedona? Can you give us some connection
Yeah.
points here?
Oh, can I? Please. Yes, of course. Terry and Lady Ashtar can be reached very simple website, ladyashtar.com.
Okay,
That's real simple, LADYASHTAR.com. And that has the Sedona information.
good.
Loved, and right now we're running a special. If you sign up before December 1st, we have a whole bunch of prizes you'll be eligible for, including free half-hour private sessions with Ashtar.
Whoa,
Ooh.
that would be wonderful.
Oh, they are.
Hmm.
And you can also ask for scheduling if you'd like a session with Ashtar through that website. My own website is called choicefulllivingseminars.com.
Choice is in CHOICE. Choiceful. Wonderful.
Choicefulllivingseminars.com. I
Wonderful.
blog there 3 times a week. Um, and we also have some information about the Sedona event on that. But those are the two ways. I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, great.
And if people have questions or they want to have a seminar put on about relationships or basic spirituality or really embodying it is all about me, happy to talk to you.
And that's really a wonderful ministry. Thank you so much, Brian Graham. I really enjoyed this. And give my love to Terry and Lord Ashtar. I think of her as Terry, but she's Lady Ashtar. I recognize that.
No, there's Terry.
Mm-hmm.
That's the lady I married.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Lady Ashtar. It's a change that comes over her when she sets her intention on bringing through Ashtar.
I love that.
And then there's Ashtar. So I get to live with three separate entities all at one time.
You are lucky. Well, you're an air sign. You can be quite. You can move through it all. I'm sure it's wonderful for you.
Every day's exciting.
Thank you again, Brian. And this is Veronica Entwistle saying, if you've enjoyed this and you want to give some feedback, my site is veronicaentwistle.com. You've been listening to Paradigm Shifters Radio here on BBS. Love to hear from you. Love your feedback and loved our visit with Brian. Thanks very much for listening. We'll be in touch.